the revolution starting inside. An instrumental part of Agora worldwide. Agora worldwide. Agora worldwide. Counter economics. Agorist strip. Black market click. Move a quick flip. Can't regulate this. Agorist strip. Black market click. Move a quick flip. Can't regulate this. Agorist.
Agorist.
Agorist. Nexus. Agorist.
Agorist.
This is Brandon with the Agorist Nexus podcast. I've got my great co-host Dag as always. How you doing, Dag?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Pretty good. It's again recording from the podcast shed. It's getting a little chilly, for Florida. But I'll live.
Nice.
Yeah. It's what I go through for this podcast. I put on a sweater.
I've got to turn my fans off for the podcast because I'm down here in Mexico. So, before we get into it, Presearch, decentralized search engine, earn crypto as you search. Just a great project all around. And we really appreciate them sponsoring us. And if you want to click the affiliate link to, just tell them that we're worth sponsoring again when they go to renew, that really helps us. So, with that said, we've got Matt Hill on, the co-founder of start9 here to talk about the Embassy, a cool little device that I really believe is important as well, because with when you have cloud service technology, basically what a cloud is just other people's servers, right? So having your own server seems to be the way to go. But without further ado, how you doing, Mr. Hill?
I'm doing great.
Matt Hill.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. So, tell us how you guys started the company and all that.
I'll give you the brief origin story. In short, it was me wanting to set up a Lightning node so that I could transact with Keegan McClelland, who's one of start9 co-founders. Lightning at the time was just coming out of beta, and we wanted to, see what it was all about and see if it was going to be a viable scaling solution for Bitcoin. So I'm a fairly technical person. I'm a coder. I do full stack development. And so I felt very capable of going about this project. So I told Keegan I would set up my Lightning node and then we'd get to it. And so I set out to do this, and within a few minutes, realized that it was going to take me all weekend at least to get this done, because the documentation was still fairly, sparse, and I've seen a few build scripts in my life, and I knew that this was going to be a mess. So I called Keegan. I was just like, look, I could absolutely go through this, but, given the properties of Lightning, that it is a system that essentially requires users to run their own nodes for security purposes, and that running a node is really hard, I was like, well, what if we made it really easy? What if it was super easy to run a Lightning node? Wouldn't that be valuable, at least to the very few people in the world who wanted to run a Lightning node? So we started thinking about how we could make it really easy. And that was actually a pretty easy problem to solve. But then we started thinking more broadly about, well, wouldn't it be nice to also run a Bitcoin node? And wouldn't it be nice to also run my own password manager and my own self-hosted file storage and my own email server? And we're like, wait, we should self-host everything. We should make it super easy for individuals to self-host their digital life. So that way you're not dependent on third parties for your data and communication and financial needs, because more and more, that is becoming a very serious problem in the world. So not only did we set out to make running a Lightning node easy, but we wanted to make it easy and accessible for anyone, regardless of technical expertise, to take back their digital sovereignty, their independence online, which is a huge problem, right? Not a simple thing, very complex, very big, and very, very important. And it took us a while to really determine that we were going to go down this route, because it was kind of a lifelong commitment. We all kind of knew it at the time. We were like, wait a second, are we really going to try to build a new internet? okay, fuck it, let's go. And we did. We dove in, my co-founders and I, and then we built a team around us, very capable people, and we're now a team of 11 and growing quickly. And we put a product to market in like the first 6 months, and we've now iterated it 2 major times, many small times, but we've had 2 major revolutions in the product. One is just around the corner. So version 3 of our product is weeks away from launch. And it takes us one step closer to the promised land where we're trying to get.
Very cool. So why would someone need, so this is basically, to clarify for the listeners, this is basically like a plug and play private server. Would that be the right way to say this?
Yeah, to anyone who knows what that means, that's a great way to describe it, but not everyone knows why that is meaningful.
So why would somebody need their own private server?
In short, so that you don't have to use somebody else's server, right? You have to use a server. So every time you pick up your phone or jump on your laptop or your desktop and you do anything at all that involves the internet or what many people refer to as the cloud, you are essentially raising your hand like a child and asking permission from some corporate or governmental entity to do very basic things like message your friends and loved ones or gain access to your pictures across multiple devices. Not only are you asking permission sort of implicitly, but you are also at the mercy of those entities, as in they can cut you off if they want to. They can watch you if they want to. They could let others watch you if they want to, even without a warrant. And they could extort you. And quite frankly, that is going to be the major problem that actually causes people to want to fix this problem. Because a lot of people say they care about privacy, or they say they care about, independence, that they don't want to ask permission. But at the end of the day, it's so convenient that most people do it anyway, because it's just unthinkable to not use some third-party cloud provider to do your computing needs. It's almost unthinkable. How would you do it any other way? But now that we've become so dependent on them that people really can't even imagine how to do it another way, and people are starting to care more about their privacy, which actually eliminates a revenue stream for many of these companies, because they can no longer mine your data and sell it as easily as they used to, because people are now like saying, don't do that. And things like, iOS, for instance, is now enabling people to opt out of a lot of these tracking mechanisms. And so the only way that these companies are going to have to make money going forward is going to be subscriptions. So we predict that over the next 5 years or so, that almost every piece of software that you use is going to be in some way or another charging you on a monthly or weekly or even pay-as-you-go basis for the service.
Wow, that's huge. I'm just mind blown. How do you think that they're going to implement it, or how do you think it's going to come about? Or, I've got this question, but I can't get it. I can't word it right. But help me out if you.
Yeah, you've already seen it with certain things, right? So the way that most software works on your phone is that there's a free tier. So you sign up, right? You enter your email address and password, and they create an account for you, and it's free. And I put that in quotes because, it's not really free. You're sort of the product, and they're really just tracking you and mining data and selling it or showing you ads, whatever. But in some cases, you can even opt out of that stuff and just pay a subscription. You're like, oh, I don't want to see ads. Or I want, more than 10 gigabytes of storage. And so what you do is you opt into a subscription model. You enter your credit card, and they charge you on a monthly basis. And you pay it. And you see this with streaming services as well, things like Netflix and Hulu. And, subscription models that are based on account creation, payment information, and subscription are very common. And so the model is already there. My argument was mostly that you're going to see a proliferation of these models, that basically everything will be, you'll just get nickel and dimed out of existence. Like, oh, you want to share that picture with your friend? It's no longer free, right? You need to pay for that share, probably on a monthly basis, some sort of software subscription. And the reason for that hypothesis is because the alternative means of making money is drying up because of this growing awareness of privacy. So it's kind of this double-edged sword, right? Everyone's rising up saying, don't track us, don't surveil us, don't invade my privacy. Well, the consequence of that is going to be direct monetization instead of indirect. So we think the subscriptions are going to proliferate and people will feel the pain of centralized computing more directly, because while it was privacy invasion, you actually didn't feel that on a daily basis, right? Most people do not go through their lives using their phone, like directly experiencing that cost. They're not like, oh, someone's watching on my phone, someone's watching on my phone. Maybe some people do, but the vast majority of us are not sort of living with this moment to moment. But when you are being charged for it, it will be a lot more invasive. You're going to feel that very, very directly because it's going to show up on your bank statement. And it's like, oh, that's how much money they took last month. I lost, $500 in subscription costs last month. Whereas currently there's no bank statement for your privacy, right? You don't get to the end of the month and you're like, oh, look at all the data they took of mine. Like, it's invisible. And so you don't feel it as much.
Yeah, and I think with this cost subscription model that you're talking about, that that this could still turn into a very like technocratic, wet dream, if you will, for these governments or other entities, because not only do they know exactly who's using the product, but they can also track you financially through each time they charge your bank account and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think what you're saying should definitely be listened to, and yeah, I don't really have a question there. I was just kind of going off on a tangent, but
it's definitely something that's like when like these companies have like monopolies on these services a lot of times. So when the government is like severely restricting competition, then a lot of times like you might be like forced to pay a subscription if you want like certain services, because like, of course, like there's a lot of things I pay subscriptions for because I don't want the free version because I don't want to be tracked as much, or I don't want to see ads or whatever, so that in itself isn't like a bad thing, like subscription services. But yeah, when you have no other option, then it definitely puts you in a tight spot. And when government throttles competition, that can make it not markety.
For sure. Like, don't get me wrong, paying for a good or service is fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's that when that good or service is monopolized or run by an oligarchic group of technocrats, it's like, yeah, you're gonna pay more than you should. It's not going to be value for value, right? Like, if you hold all the pipes, then you can squeeze on them. And we're not entering a world where it's going to be an open free market thing. Like these pipes are consolidating. They're not proliferating. And so, we'll see. For me, that's actually not the main point. For me, sovereign computing, right, not using third parties to fulfill your computing needs, is less about cost and much more about, independence and dignity. Mm-hmm. Just not raising my hand and asking permission from people I don't know to send messages to my family, and then having them look at those messages and then potentially reporting them if they don't like what they see. And to me, it's just gross. What I'm saying is that I don't know if everyone agrees with me. There's a lot of people out there that take the stance of like, well, I have nothing to hide, so I don't care if they're watching. And unfortunately, those people aren't really going to adopt an alternative computing platform into their lives unless it hits their pocketbook. That's when we're going to get the next rung of people. So the people who are, privacy advocates, people who support the right to privacy and independence and freedom, sort of, this side of the philosophic and political spectrum, are going to take to this technology because of its principles. But there's a whole other group of people that will only take to this technology once it becomes cheaper. And I think both are happening. So I think everyone eventually ends up on this new model because the centralized, controlled, extorted model of computing that we have today is only going to get worse. The consequences of it have not yet been fully realized. We started laying the groundwork of this model, really back in the 90s when the first kind of hosted services emerged and then just became, I'd say it really started hitting its stride when like Facebook launched. And they really started to understand the power that came along with being the server farm, right? There's an enormous amount of power in running the servers that everyone uses for their computing needs. It really puts you at the center of human existence because most of our existence takes place in the digital world now. I mean, obviously we live in a physical world, we can interact in that world, but most people's jobs and communications are predominantly online, which means they're predominantly under the control of fewer and fewer people. And I'm sort of preaching to the choir here, I know, but what you might not realize is that like everything is going to get hacked eventually. There is no such thing as an unhackable database, right? There is no such thing as the ability to search and seize that does not eventually take place. It's a matter of time. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? And these breaches and abuses of power and extortionary behavior are going to get worse. There is no reason to think that they're going to get better. You cannot regulate your way out of this. In fact, the more power you hand to regulators, the longer you might delay an explosion, but the bigger the explosion is going to be when it eventually happens.
Good way of putting that, yeah.
So feel like we're in a race, right? Myself and my partners and the rest of the company, we think that the solution to this is to build a parallel system, right? You cannot fight fire with fire. You have to provide a way out. And Bitcoin does that in large part for financials, right? Like Bitcoin provides an exit ramp from the fiat system. But there is no real exit ramp currently for the computing elite. You can't escape Google right now. It's like you can try, but somewhere along the lines, you are crossing into their borders, and say like you do avoid Google, well, Apple's got you, or you avoid Apple, Microsoft's got you. Like it's very hard to get out of the centralized, controlled, custodial, technological world that we have built. It's very hard. And we are trying to provide that ramp for people. And by the time we really need it, hopefully it's really, really good. Already pretty good, but it's getting better by the day.
And this product is really exciting. And you brought up a lot of good topics. And this is the reason why we love Presearch. So for anyone listening, definitely hop on Presearch.
Yeah, they need to make an actual phone platform. That'd be dope. Actually get away from Google altogether.
Get away from Android altogether. But I want to speak to the people who don't care about free speech real quick. And like if you look at the UK, like what they could do in terms of like posting things or sharing things back 20 years ago, a lot of those things are illegal today. Like they cannot share certain memes today. They cannot share certain posts today. So, even if you have nothing to hide today,
you might
is
tomorrow. That same thing might not be okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that same thing might not be okay tomorrow. Exactly. And they very well could get you on it later on. So just definitely keep that in mind for sure. Yeah.
I have a couple things. So you sort of touched on these. So two questions. I mean, they're very different, but say one of one of them will be is this something that can help protect you from like not necessarily just like government or company spies, but like hackers and shit? Because that's something that we kind of worry about is the what do they call it? Where they ransom your stuff?
Ransomware.
Yeah. Like, is this something that can help protect you from that as well if you're hosting your own server? Because like I do things like, I don't know, like I run a small e-commerce site, and like, we're having this conversation, and I'm like, I don't even know where the server that hosts it is. I don't know anything about it, and that's like my fucking business. It's like I should really probably take better account of that kind of stuff. I should know the answer to that question,
Yeah, so I will. I have something to say on that for sure. You, me, most people in this world are never the target of a hack, right? You are the bystander, or you are a member of the target when the target itself is a group. For instance, when somebody hacks Facebook, they're not hacking you; they're hacking Facebook. You just happen to have your stuff on Facebook. And so the ransomware attack that gets targeted at you is issued by a bot, right? It goes through the Facebook, gold mine that was just hacked, and it sends an email to everyone in there saying, we have your photos, we have your DMs, send Bitcoin to this address or else. Nobody even knew who you were. You were just some random entry on a list of Facebook profiles that happened to have gotten compromised. And what I'm getting at here is a basic tenet of security, which is that when you distribute the wealth all over the place, right? So if you are in direct personal control of all your data, and I'm in direct personal control of all my data, then if a hacker wants to obtain all of our data, they have to hack each one of us individually, which is literally double the work, right? Hacking two people is twice as much work as hacking one person. But when you put 1 billion people's information into one database, you have now created the ultimate target of a hack, right? So what happens here is that when you spread the data out, when everyone takes responsibility for their own data and communications, nobody will get hacked because you're just strictly not interesting enough, right? Maybe if you are a super high profile person and you're known to have, $1 billion of wealth or whatever, then yeah, you might be a target and you might want to consult with a cybersecurity firm to make sure that your infrastructure is appropriate. But for an average person on an average day, you are safer with your valuables in your home than with your valuables in the bank.
Makes sense.
Right? So that's just as kind of a tenet of security and how we look at this. That's it. Like, if you don't want to get hacked, don't put your stuff into a honeypot that attracts bees.
Hey guys, quick pause here to tell you about our sponsor, Devault Cryptocurrency. Ticker symbol DVT is a low cap coin with a market cap around 900,000. So there could be room for opportunity here. Not financial advice, but we really like this project.
Yeah, the Devault core wallet is one of the best I've ever seen. Very user-friendly, super easy to use with cold staking rewards, so it's like getting interest. They're working on privacy with Terraform, also DeFi to decentralize and replace financial institutions.
So go ahead and check them out over at devault.cc and get you a Devault core wallet today. Also, be sure to check out the show notes to find exchanges that they are traded on. With that said, let's get back to the show.
Nice. What? Now, it seems like you can do a lot with this. Like my imagination is just running wild. Like, what can I do with this thing? This it's called the Embassy. I don't know the price point. I've got it up here, but yeah, it looks like you can do a lot with it. There's all kinds of like web interfaces on it and stuff. What can I do with this thing?
Yeah. So let me break down kind of what the product is first, and then I can enumerate the very specific things that you can use it for.
Sure.
So first, it's a physical device, which is necessary because if it's not a physical device, the physical device exists somewhere else because there's always a physical device somewhere. Okay. There's no such thing as software without hardware. So, we go the full mile and say, we acknowledge that a physical device is necessary to do anything on a computer. So let's put that physical device in your home where it's safest. So we sell a physical device. However, the physical device that we sell is really boring, right? It is a Raspberry Pi single board computer in a box with a small speaker in it for audio feedback. We did that very intentionally because we wanted people to be able to build these on their own without having to do business with us, because we don't want people to have to trust us. So you could go down to your local hardware store and grab a couple commodity parts off the shelf and have an Embassy.
That's amazing.
What is missing is Embassy OS, the operating system that makes all of this possible, right? So we didn't invent hardware. We're not hardware people. We don't claim to be. We're really boring on that side, and we want to be. We invented a new operating system. It's based on Ubuntu as of the latest version. The old one was based on Raspbian, but it is a Linux distro. And it's not just like we, pre-install a bunch of software on some Linux operating system. We use Linux as a base, but we really did build a massive piece of software that is very much its own operating system, just like Mac OS was based on Linux, but is very much its own operating system. Embassy OS is also its own operating system. And what Embassy OS is designed to do is something that no other operating system in history has ever been designed to do, which is to facilitate the process of discovering, downloading, installing, configuring, and running server-side software. There are many operating systems in the world that are designed to run client-side software. This is Windows, Mac, iOS, Android. These are all operating systems that facilitate the discovery, download, installation, configuration, and running of client-side software. We call them apps. These are known as apps. The other side of the computing world that nobody ever thinks about or knows anything about is the server side of the world. What are all those apps talking to? Because they are just remote controls, right? When you open up your phone and you launch an app, that is a remote control for the mothership, for some computer somewhere else that's running the server-side software. And nobody ever thinks about that. Nobody runs server-side software. People who do run server-side software are known as sysadmins, DevOps engineers, and they almost always are doing it for a company. Some companies, governments, organizations, they run server-side software because they understand the value of owning your own shit. So they run server-side software and they employ highly paid, highly technical individuals to manage those servers for them. We call them, IT professionals, sysadmins, DevOps engineers. They go by many names. Sysadmin is my favorite. I think it's the most kind of poignant and accurate. And they get paid a lot of money because it is an extremely technical, extremely sensitive, and very high trust position. These people generally have the keys to the kingdom. We saw this even a couple of weeks ago when some sysadmin at Facebook pushed a bad configuration and basically took down the entire Facebook ecosystem around the world for hours. That's because some guy who had credentials, had the keys to the kingdom, made a mistake and all of Facebook went down. And that anecdote I use strictly as an example of how delicate and how complex it is and how powerful it is to be a sysadmin. What Embassy OS is designed to do, like I said, what no other operating system in history has ever been designed to do, is to make the experience of being a sysadmin accessible to everyone, right? When you use Embassy OS running on your Embassy, which again is just commodity hardware, you feel like a sysadmin, yet you don't necessarily know everything that's happening. It's on the one hand, it feels like magic, like, wow, I'm shopping for and installing and configuring and managing dependencies and running health checks and all these crazy things that highly paid people do. I'm doing it for myself in my home and my family, and we're managing all our own data. And it sort of feels like magic because you don't really understand how it's all happening, but you also feel in control. Like it's not obfuscated, right? Our OS does not simply go, sit back, relax, and let us do it all. Our OS is more like IKEA. It's more like you can do this, right? Like you follow these instructions, you click these buttons, and boom, power to you. We don't do it all for you because, quite frankly, we can't, right? There's a minimum viable effort required on the part of the user to actually run a server in their home. But we very much compare it to something like a build your own furniture thing, where it comes with a kit and the instructions are right there, and a basically competent person can get it done. And the result of that process is not only power, like you really are taking your data back, you're taking your communications back, and it is at the permission of no one. Absolutely no one can even knows you're doing it, let alone can stop you. And you did it. There's that feeling of like self-esteem that comes along with it. Like you finish this and you go, whoa, like I'm techie. I set it up. Like my family is protected now. And that's what we hear back from our customers. That is the feedback that we have received, which very much validated our original hypothesis, but also informs our ongoing development. That is the experience we are going for. Okay, now what can you do with it, right? Specifically, now that we kind of understand what it is, what can you do with it? Today, there are a suite of services on our marketplace. We call them services because if we called them apps, it would collide with your prior conception of what an app is. Right?
I was going to ask. I was thinking they almost seem like apps, but I'm like, that's not the right thing, as you just explained.
Yeah. So earlier I said apps are client-side software, right? That's how we are defining this anyway. Like we're sort of inventing language as we go here because we really are inventing something new, like something that most people, it's new brain space. It's not some iteration of something that already exists. It's new brain space. And so we need new language to describe that. So use apps is wrong. Apps are things that are on your phone. Apps are things that are on your MacBook and they're little icons, and they launch and they're clients. What's running on your server is a service. Okay. You have apps that run on your phone and services that run on your server. And so you go to our marketplace and you shop for services that you want to run. And keep in mind, you are shopping for server-side software here. It's kind of weird. You're not shopping for a client to use. You're shopping for the server software. And some of them ship with their own client. So this is can be a little jarring, okay? So when you install server-side software, some of those things are like, oh, I also happen to come with, as bundled as part of my package, a web application that can be accessed in the browser. So the experience of running a piece of software on Embassy is you shop the marketplace for something you want to install. Let's do an example. We have an app, or damn it, see, I'm still teaching myself. We have a service on the marketplace called File Browser. File Browser is essentially Dropbox or Google Drive or OneDrive. Right? It's a cloud data storage service. And File Browser also comes with its own web client. So what you do is you install File Browser on your Embassy, which is a simple matter of clicking the install button, right? You found it on our marketplace, you click install. And the result of that installation is a service that is now running on your Embassy, which you can start and stop and configure and view its health and all the things that you'd want to do as a sysadmin, right? You can view all these things, all these insights into the service, make sure that it is serving properly over the network interface. And again, you don't even need to know what I'm saying to be able to do it because it's all very graphical in nature. It's check marks and spinners and it's very clear what's happening. And the second piece that results from that installation is a URL, a brand new, never before seen URL that was created at the time that you installed the service. In fact, there's two URLs. One of them is a Tor v3 hidden service URL. And the other is a .local URL. So one is a .onion and one is a .local. The way that you are intended to use these two URLs is that when you're at home, right, when you are on your local area network, and all that means is connected to your Wi-Fi network at home, right? So when you're at home and you're connected to your Wi-Fi network, you can visit file browser's unique .local URL. And what'll pop into your browser, so you're literally just using a browser, okay? You go to the internet, open up Safari or Chrome or Firefox or whatever you use, and type in blah, blah, blah .local. And what'll pop onto the screen is a login screen, username, password. But you have to acknowledge at this point that the screen that you are seeing, that you are logging into, is being served from the server that's sitting behind you in your home. You can actually unplug your modem and do this. You do not need to be connected to the internet at all. All you need to do is be connected to your router, to the local area network of your home, either via Ethernet or Wi-Fi. And you're visiting a website, an actual website that is being served from a device in your home. And so when you log into it, you're actually logging in with yourself. There's no third party involved at all. You're entering a username and password and logging into your own website. Once you're logged into your website, you can do all the things that you would ordinarily be able to do on Dropbox. You can upload files, download files. You can even create shareable links, grant permissions to other users on your server. So for instance, my wife, my kid, they could create user accounts on this website. And they would be creating user accounts with me, with our family, with ourselves. Friends could create accounts on my server. So I am now Dropbox, right? I basically just acquired the power of Dropbox just for me and my friends and family, or just for me. Shit, I could use it for myself. I don't need anybody else, right? It's just a place where I store my files. And it's super fast if you're on your LAN because you're not even going over the wire. It's literally, you can upload an entire movie to your file browser really fast because it's not even going over the internet. It's right on your local area network. So then, let's say you leave the home. You go to the other side of the world and you want to view some files or pictures or whatever it is on your server in your home. Instead of putting in the .local URL, you put in the .onion URL. You open up a Tor browser or a Tor-enabled browser like Brave, Tor tabs, Firefox with SOCKS 5 enabled, or just the Tor browser itself. And you plug in your file browser's unique .onion URL. And guess what? Same thing. What pops into the browser window is the same login screen that you saw before. You log in and you are now talking to a device in your home from the other side of the world with zero trusted third parties involved. Zero. Not only can they not stop you from doing this, when I say they, I mean anyone. Nobody can stop you from accessing this device. Not only that, but they don't even know that it exists because the Tor URL that file browser lives at is not something that got registered with some DNS provider. There was no third party. It's a public key. Your Tor v3 URL is just a public key that corresponds to a private key that was created when you installed file browser. So that's how it works, okay? And we can apply this to basically anything imaginable. So almost anything that you can think of that you currently use the internet for, like I'm going to go to some website, log in with my username and password and do the things I need to do. Anything that you can imagine can also be done in the model that I just described. You can literally take back your entire digital life, eliminating all third parties, all third-party trust, all possibilities of surveillance and censorship, and it is 100% by nature forever free.
Dude, that's incredible. Wow, there's a lot there. Okay, so I'm sorry. This sounds like a basic question. I'm not just missing the whole point, but I got to know, like, okay, so we just like, okay, so like in this instance where it's like your Dropbox, the file, like the data, the video, the movie, whatever, it's physically like stored on the embassy device or on your computer, or like where's that data actually sitting?
It's physically on the embassy device.
Okay, so can you like expand the memory on it, or is it limited, or like does it hold a lot, or?
That's a great question. So we are evolving this hardware in real time. So the current device that we have been selling for the last year, about the last year is when we came out with our previous version. Everything on the embassy runs off of a single micro SD card that's plugged into the Raspberry Pi. So all the data, everything lives on just a tiny little micro SD card plugged in. So there's not even like an SSD, there's no HDDs, there's no external wires, nothing. It's just a tiny little box, and that runs off a micro SD. And that is not okay, like long term. We recognize that was a stepping stone towards a much more powerful, extensible device and experience. So with 030, this is our new major like coming of age product that's just getting ready to launch. You now need, it's not an option, it requires that a storage drive be plugged into the device. So you can use a 4 terabyte SSD, you could use a 16 terabyte HDD, doesn't matter. Whatever you want, you plug it into the device, and you have to, like click a couple buttons to upgrade from the current product. Or if you buy the new product straight out, then there won't be any migration necessary. But from then on, all of the data for all of your services lives on this drive, this external drive. Nice. That's plugged into the embassy device. And the operating system lives on the micro SD card as a read-only piece of software. So the operating system lives on like the little brain chip, and all the data lives on the hard drive. So if you ever wanted to just like yank the hard drive out and throw it in your bag and get out, all your data would be with you. You wouldn't even have to bring the embassy. It's all on the drive.
Very cool.
Right. And that is a stepping stone, because there's a couple problems with having all your critical, sensitive, financial, and private data sitting on a drive, sitting in your home, right? There's a couple of challenges with that. One is, well, doesn't that mean somebody else can just walk into my home, grab that drive, and have all my data? So the answer is absolutely, unless the whole entire disk is encrypted, which is something we now do with 030. So currently, if someone were to walk in your home and grab your embassy and walk out, a vast majority of the data on that disk is not encrypted. So again, it's something we knew needed to get better, but you have to build things incrementally. You can't have it all at once. So with the new version, the data is encrypted at rest. So even if somebody gets a hold of your embassy, they will not have your data. The second concern with having all of this data on a physical drive is, what if somebody takes a hammer to it? Okay, forget about their ability to take your data or see it. What if they just destroy it? What if there's a fire or a flood and all your data is gone? So the way that we deal with that is through backups. So the current way that you back things up on Embassy is you plug in a drive. Like this is what happens today in the existing product. You plug in a drive, you go into your settings and you click backup and it backs it up. And then you unplug that drive and you go put it somewhere safe. And now if there's a fire, then you can recover all of your data. In 030, the new version, the way that you will create backups is, one, you could do what I just said. You could plug a drive in and create a backup. Or two, you can actually create cloud backups now, encrypted cloud backups to other devices on your local area network. So for instance, I could be upstairs on my MacBook and my embassy is downstairs and they're not connected in any way, but I could use my MacBook to access my embassy by visiting its web address, right? The embassy is just a website, like your own private website, just like I described with File Browser. So I would access my embassy, I would click backup, and then I would actually select my MacBook that I'm using as the destination of the backup, and then the embassy would create a backup over the air to my laptop. And I would have a folder on my laptop that's like, Matt's embassy backup. And it's encrypted, fully encrypted. So even if somebody gets my MacBook, they don't have data that's on my embassy.
All right, let's take a quick second to shout out Agorist Acres Seeds. AgoristAcres.com stocks a variety of seeds for your garden or homestead. They also have really cool packaging instead of those silly paper envelopes.
Buy seeds with crypto, support the counter economy, and become self-sustaining today. Agorist Acres offers fast shipping so you can get started right away.
Make sure you use code Nexus10 at the checkout for 10% off of your orders. Also, they will donate a portion of the sale to Agorist Nexus, helping to bring you all the great content you expect. And all right, let's get on with it.
It's that's just killer.
Where we go from there, right? The next step with backups, where we're going, is that you have to be able to create automated cloud backups, because if you are relying on people to go in and be diligent about creating backups on a regular basis, it's just not going to happen, right? People are not that diligent. They're not going to remember to create weekly backups. And so what we're building next is you'll be able to basically just set a schedule, say, create a backup every day, the end of every day at midnight, back up my embassy. And I want you to back it up to this destination. And that destination will be very arbitrary. You'll be able to back it up to anything from Google Drive. If you really wanted to leverage the existing model to store encrypted backups, you could. It's fully encrypted, so it doesn't matter. They can't read anything. But what we really like even better is that you could create an automated backup to a different embassy of yours, or your friend's embassy, or your another embassy in the family. So these embassies will actually act as buddy systems for each other. Not only will you be able to create encrypted backups on other people's embassies, assuming they've given you permission to do so, they'd have to give you credentials to do it. But these embassies can check on each other too, to check on the health. My embassy could every 5 minutes of every day just ping your embassy and be like, hey, are you okay? Do you have internet? Is everything healthy? Are you experiencing a high temperature? Is everything fine? And if there's a problem, my embassy can actually send you an email saying, hey, I think something might be wrong with your embassy. You might want to take a look at
Dude,
it.
this one device solves so many problems, and it's so brilliant. And it seems really user-friendly too. It really looks like it's user-friendly. What's the feedback you've gotten from your customers about, usability and stuff?
The most dominant emotion that we have experienced in our community chat channels, almost everyone joins our community chat after they're a customer, not only because they might have a question, but because it actually is a really cool community. There's a lot of great, helpful conversations that take place, very practical things that people can do to, improve their digital lives. One of the first emotions that everyone expresses when they hit that channel is, I did it. Oh my God, guys, you said it was going to work and that I could do it. And I didn't believe you because I don't know shit about any of this, but I did it. So it's surprise. The most common emotion that we encounter is surprise at the fact that it wasn't a pile of BS, that it actually worked. And then we create fanatics, right? A lot of our customers are very supportive of us. They're not just a happy customer. They are excited to spread this to their friends and their family. We have a very useful, very powerful product here. And that's it. We're doing great. We just need more of it. We can't move fast enough, when we look at this technology, we're oh my God, it's so young still, we have so many things that we want to do. And we just can't get there fast enough. Like I said, every day at our office is a race. We feel like we're just racing against this alternative future that is trying to just consume all of humanity. It's just like this encroaching shadow that's just constantly coming at the world. And we're in a race to build this alternative system. And our community feels the same way. Like we're creating, like very passionate people through this technology. Like, because it can be very depressing in the world today, right? You look out and you're just like, oh my God, like how do you even fight back against something like that? How do you beat something like that? And then you get a taste of how you do it, right? You find Bitcoin and you're like, ooh, that's a way. Like we can fight back with this thing. And then you find something like Embassy and you're like, ooh, that's another way we can fight back with this. Like it's practical. It's not just talk. It's like a real tool that you can use today to protect yourself and fight back.
How do people now of course you can run like lightning nodes on it. Like what are people finding out that they can do with crypto on this thing?
So currently the services that we offer that fit that description are Bitcoin. That was the first service we ever put on the marketplace. First thing you could ever do with an Embassy was run a full Bitcoin node. Lightning, and we offer 2 implementations of Lightning, both LND and C Lightning. You can run one, both, or neither against your Bitcoin node. Like they both require your Bitcoin node to be, running underneath it. And then we have layer 3 applications, things that need Lightning. So, for instance, Sphinx Chat is one of them. It's a chat application that runs on top of the Lightning network. We have Thunder Hub, Ride the Lightning. These are apps, and I use that word properly here. They are apps, web applications that utilize your LND or C Lightning node that's running on your Embassy. These web applications are also run on your Embassy, so it gets a little, the line between service and app can get a little blurry because sometimes a service is an app, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we offer multiple services that are actually just web apps that are using the LND node on your Embassy. BTC Pay Server is awesome. It allows you to accept payments in Bitcoin and Lightning, either point of sale or as like buttons on your website. BTC Pay Server is one of the coolest Bitcoin and Lightning services out there. Also comes with its own web interface, its own app. So that's it currently. We call it, the Bitcoin stack. It's like Bitcoin, Lightning, and then things that you can do with Bitcoin and Lightning. We also are about to have Monero on our marketplace.
There we go.
Someone from the community has taken it upon themselves to package the Monero software for Embassy. So that will launch after 030. Okay. And really that's the limit. I mean, basically any thing that can be run on a server can in theory be run on Embassy. So that means basically any cryptocurrency or blockchain project that you can imagine could in theory run on Embassy, but in practice, not so much, because imagine something like Ethereum, right? So Ethereum cannot run on Embassy because Ethereum can't really be run on anything right now, right? Like the software is so massive. It's so hungry for compute and RAM and storage space that you need like a server rack to run Ethereum. Okay, like if we were going to sell hardware that could run Ethereum, it would cost like $10,000 at least. So Ethereum is not a viable candidate for Embassy because Ethereum cannot be run on reasonable hardware. It requires massive hardware, and that's not what we're selling. Whereas Bitcoin, for instance, has this tiny, tiny little footprint, right? Bitcoin can be run on a 2 gigabyte Raspberry Pi. It's not a hungry piece of software like Ethereum is. So Monero is kind of in between, right? It's definitely more on the side of Bitcoin, You absolutely can run a Monero node on a Raspberry Pi on commodity hardware with limited storage space. It can be done, but it's not as light as Bitcoin. It's not as efficient. So it's going to use more of your computing resources. So like, for instance, if you're running Monero on your Embassy, you might not be able to run a whole lot else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
you kind of have to pick and choose. You can't have it all on one device.
Yeah, that's where block size comes into play, right? Like it would be harder to do like Bitcoin Cash on an Embassy and stuff, right?
Yeah, and that was actually a big part of the block debate that took place in 2016 and 17 was exactly what I'm talking about right now. It's like you want these things to be able to be run by everyday people, right? Because otherwise what happens is nobody can run them, so nobody runs them, which means in practice they're actually centralized entities, right? If there's only one person in the world running an Ethereum node, then Ethereum is not a decentralized network. It's a centralized network because there's only one server running. So it's really important to keep the software manageable so that it can be run on things like Embassy.
I have a question about marketplace real quick. I know we're coming up on time here. So are things that are available on the marketplace, are they only things that like you guys develop for it, or is this something like the community can submit like a project if somebody wanted to take it upon themselves to develop something for this? Can something be added to the marketplace by like you guys, or how does that work?
Great question, and it's a really key part of this entire infrastructure. So the marketplace setup is currently an open protocol spec. So what that means is that anyone who builds a piece of software that conforms to the protocol spec will essentially be a marketplace. So start9 is currently the only entity in the world that is running a marketplace. So when you get on your Embassy and you go shopping for services, you are getting that software from us. And I mean that literally, from like start9, the team. We have a marketplace, we host binaries on it, and you can download those binaries. That is a vulnerability at scale because there's nothing to guarantee that we do not become corrupt, right? You have my word, but what's that worth with a gun to my head, right? So we cannot be the central point of failure of this system if we want this system to succeed. So what we did to mitigate against this was we made the marketplace an open protocol spec. So we are currently aware of multiple people, at least two, who are in the process of spinning up, we'll call it competing marketplaces. So alternative marketplaces where users can shop for the services they want to install. You can almost think of this like a BitTorrent type of thing where you can go get your software from anyone who happens to be running one of these torrenting servers. So what that means is if you don't want to shop at our marketplace, either because you don't trust us or or we don't have something that you want to download, like we don't have the software that you want, all you have to do is go into your Embassy settings, switch to a different marketplace, which is a simple matter of just putting in the URL of the marketplace you want to go to, and then you'll be shopping at that marketplace instead. And when I talk about trusting us, you're not really trusting us that much because the software is still validating the services that you download. So it doesn't matter which marketplace you go to. In 0.3.1, not 0.3.0, the software that's coming out now, but in 0.3.1, the next version of Embassy OS, you will actually add the public keys of specific individuals or organizations that you trust. So you will actually add the like public PGP key of some dev, some developer, some Bitcoin Core developer or Monero developer that you trust. And then you can go to any marketplace and download software, and it will only install if the the person who signed that piece of software, that service, is somebody you trust.
Nice.
So what we've done here is we've created a marketplace of marketplaces, right? There's an ecosystem of marketplaces, or at least there will be as more and more people spin them up, which dramatically mitigates against any kind of coercive centralized attack, because any single marketplace can go down and users can just go shop somewhere else. And these marketplaces could even be Tor hidden services. They don't even have to be ClearNet marketplaces. Like, there's nothing that can stop somebody from spinning up a marketplace and then people shopping at it to obtain these services. So that's one aspect of your question. The second was, do we gatekeep? Like, are we going to personally decide what is and is not on our marketplace? I don't know if you asked it in exactly that way, but I think you were getting at that. The answer is yes. We will absolutely gatekeep our marketplace because we are trying to provide a very streamlined experience for our users, right? Like, when you shop at the start9 marketplace, you know that you're only going to get the cream of the crop of software. We're not going to let somebody who put together some crappy piece of malware, that doesn't work, doesn't do what it's supposed to do, and put it on our marketplace. Because guess what's going to happen? A user is going to download that software, and it's not going to work, and they're going to call us. And they're going to be like, hey, I got this thing off your marketplace, and it sucks, and it doesn't work. And we're going to have to be like, well, we didn't make that thing. It's not ours. And, we're sorry, but at the end of the day, we as a company would be paying that price. It's our brand at stake.
Yeah.
So we are going
perfect.
we are going to curate our marketplace to only be like awesome things that we personally have vetted and run and can sort of attest to, sort of recommend. If you want to run something else that we do not recommend, you have two options. You actually have three options. Sorry. One is that we are considering building out a community section of our market, where technically you're still getting the software from us. We might create a section of our marketplace that is very just, you're on your own here. We don't vouch for this software, whatever. We wanted it to be available to you because it's your computer. You have the right to do whatever you want with it. But we don't
run it at your own risk.
Run it at your own risk. And if we really feel poorly about something, we may even say, well, you got to go to a different marketplace if you want that thing. Like, find somebody who's willing to let you download it, because we're not, because we think it's going to harm you. Like, we think this is actually going to cause harm. And the last thing that you can do is that you can sideload it. So you actually don't need to go to a marketplace at all. If you obtain the binary of the software you want to run, you could actually sideload it into your embassy personally. So there's nothing that we or anyone in the world can do to stop you from running the things that you want to run on your embassy. One catch here. I don't even know if it's a catch. It's an important aspect of our system. Anything that is going to run on Embassy OS needs to be packaged for Embassy OS, right? Embassy OS is a unique operating system. You can't just take any old Docker container or software binary off of the internet and expect Embassy to know what to do with it. Okay, it has to, the service has to undergo at least a minimal packaging experience, right? It has to be, we call it wrapping. You have to wrap it up such that Embassy OS knows what the hell to do with that thing. And it's really easy to do. We have designed a developer SDK, a software development kit, and a new kind of developer, right? So important piece, I'll stop me if I'm getting too technical here, but I think it's important because it's different than anything that currently exists. The things that are running on Embassy, the things that we offer in our marketplace, are open source software that somebody built somewhere in the world, okay? File browser, the one I was talking about earlier, was built by some guy over in Switzerland, I think, who built it because he thought it was cool, right? Launched it on GitHub as a MIT open source piece of software. I found it. I was browsing around for things that, would be good Dropbox alternatives. I found this software. Aiden actually found it. And then packaged it up and put it on our marketplace. And we wrote this guy an email. We were like, hey, this is some great software you built. Just FYI, we packaged it up and are now distributing it to people all over the world via our operating system marketplace. And he was like, cool, that's awesome.
Nice.
Right? We basically took this guy's pet project and unleashed it as a Dropbox alternative for everyone on Earth. And now he has this incredible incentive to go like make it better and better, because he's going to gain all this sort of, reputation and credibility for it. And, it could end up being a very valuable thing in his life, what started as, a pet project piece of software. And so we call that person a service developer. He built the service, but we, in this example that I just gave, we were the package developers. We took the service and we packaged it for Embassy OS. And that can be a very simple thing. Like you could basically take a piece of software like File Browser, put some bows and put a box on it and call it, and then it'll be usable by Embassy OS. Or you can put a ton of work into it because you, as a package developer, are the person who is describing the experience that an Embassy user will have with that service. So the naive implementation is to take something like Bitcoin, do the minimum viable package, and launch it. And what that experience would look like to an Embassy user is they would download Bitcoin. It would say, here I am. There wouldn't be any options. You wouldn't have any means of configuring it. There would be no health checks, no insights, no properties, no nothing. It would just be, here's Bitcoin. You click the start button and boom, it runs. And that's fine, right? Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's all the user wants to do. But Bitcoin is actually an incredibly complex piece of software. When you download Bitcoin, you may want to configure it in specific ways. You might want to set the pruning size. You might want to allow RPC credentials for other people to be able to use your node, et cetera, et cetera. There's like 1,000 configuration options in Bitcoin. Secondly, Bitcoin has a lot of health monitoring that is super useful. Like you want to know if it's healthy. Is my Bitcoin node healthy? Is it fully synced, right? Is it accessible on its P2P interface? Is it keeping up with transaction validation, et cetera, et cetera? All of these things are things that the package developer takes upon themselves. So let's say I'm a huge fan of Bitcoin and I'm like, man, I want everyone on Earth to be able to use Bitcoin on their Embassy, but I want them to have access to all this power. I want them to be able to configure it, to do health checks, right? Like I want to not just let them run Bitcoin, but I want them to be able to control Bitcoin. It's on me as the package developer to write all of the code that Embassy OS will then use to translate between the user and Bitcoin. So being a package developer for Embassy OS can be a job. It can be like a highly technical full-time job, or it can be a super naive, throw it in a box and let the user run it job. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And so start9, when we go to package a service, we're very thorough. So we are packaging these services up such that the user can not only run the service, but can granularly control it and tell it what to do and gain insight into it. Does that all make sense?
It does to me. Yeah,
man.
It's amazing. You and your team are absolutely amazing, and I'm really glad that I heard about you guys. I don't think a lot of people understand how big of a problem or an issue you guys are solving. So definitely hats off to you guys. Is there now to get start9 directly from you guys? You just go to the embassy. Sorry, you go to start9.com. Was there any other websites or social media sites that you wanted to plug for us? Because I know that you're running out of time here. But
I just pulled up to my destination. We're on Twitter at start9 labs. And then start9.com has links to all of our community channels. We have a community channel on Telegram. We have one on Matrix. Matrix is also a service that runs on Embassy, by the way, which is a private self-hosted app application. So yeah, all the links are at the bottom of the start9.com website, all of our community links.
Dude, excellent. Thank you so much, Matt. This was incredible. And yeah, the more you were talking about it, the more I'm realizing how, just how useful and how incredible it is. So yeah, definitely. Thank you for your service. And, I'm looking forward to getting one of these and playing around with it for sure.
Awesome. And
Dude, thank you so much, bro. Thank you so much.
For sure. Yeah. And I know I can be very long-winded about some of this stuff. It's because in talking about it over the last couple of years to varying groups of people that have different technical expertise, I've sort of learned how to preempt a lot of the questions that get asked. So sometimes I can just talk. And I apologize, but hopefully your audience and you guys.
No, dude, you were great.
That's how we like to roll. Yeah. Yeah. You're just checking stuff off my list for me, dude. It's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll let you hit it, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's do it again sometime and talk a little bit more philosophy, because I listened to a couple episodes of your guys' pod, and I like what you do. So
thank you, man. That means a lot, really.
Thanks, brother.
All right. See you guys.
Cool. Take care, brother.
We're going to end it off with a quote here. And it goes, personally, I'd like to see more of our leaders take a technocratic approach to solving our biggest problems. Bill Gates.
Nice.
Yeah. Agorist Nexus out.
Peace.